All right. Well, welcome everybody to the PeopleSoft HCM update and roadmap session. I'm Robin Valitem, Senior Director of Product Strategy with PeopleSoft. Want to not only welcome you to this session, but also welcome you to Reconnect Dive Deep 2021. It's really important and for us to all get together, even though it's virtual, to go over what's the latest and greatest with PeopleSoft. This is usually my favorite conference to attend, particularly in person. Unfortunately, we can't do that this year, and we couldn't do it last year, but I'm holding out some hope for next year. But it's important, even if we can't meet in person, to at least be able to come together virtually, share what we're doing as a PeopleSoft organization, and for us to hear from all of our customers and partners what's going on in their world. So this conference cannot be successful, virtual or not, without all of our customer participation. And I was just talking to John before we started our session, and he said that we had somewhere north of 1,400 enrollees. So that's absolutely phenomenal. We appreciate the support from all of our customers. I also just want to make mention of a few other folks that make this happen, including the Quest board and the Quest group, all the folks that spend the time to make this conference a reality. It's actually probably more challenging to do it virtually, I'm guessing, because you're pretty much on autopilot when you do it in person because you're used to the event itself and the location, but there's their own unique challenges when we do it virtually. So thank you to the Quest group for really making this happen this year. And I also want to thank those who are presenting, not only just the folks on my team and my peers, but also all the partners and customers that have decided to present this year. Without the content, it would be a pretty dry conference, right? And I also want to thank our partners that sponsor the event. They're the ones that help get the conference underway, get the planning process going. They commit very early to sponsoring, which makes it a lot easier to put the conference on. So we're very fortunate to have a very strong and dedicated PeopleSoft ecosystem with the partners that work closely with all of you to be successful with PeopleSoft. So thank you guys for all of that. So speaking of sponsors, each individual roadmap session is sponsored by a particular partner. And for our session here today, SpearMC is our sponsor. I want to thank them for their sponsorship. I have a couple slides to show you. I've actually known SpearMC for quite some time. They've been at all of our PeopleSoft events, all of our conferences, all of our user group meetings that we have. They're very much plugged into what we're doing on the PeopleSoft side. You can see their list of services here. They're very committed to servicing PeopleSoft customers and helping them get the most out of PeopleSoft, which is why we have such a great relationship with them. They're also very on top of the different technologies that we introduce to our customers. I remember when we first started talking about Elasticsearch and with Kibana, I got a call from SpearMC about asking all sorts of questions about it. When's it going to be available? What sorts of dashboards are we expecting to deliver? And this was very early on, before we even had a plan to deliver. So it just shows how excited they are, how in tune they are, and how they were willing to put together a program about it to help customers go live. So I appreciate that. Just to let you know, as I mentioned, content, they've got a number of sessions that they're doing. I highlight in bold the COVID data tracking and reporting session that Logesh is doing. Very relevant today, right? Considering what's going on. So if you get a chance, see if you can attend that session, or at least the replay of it, the instant replay. And since today we're here to talk about roadmap, I just wanted to let you know that I thought that this is a really cool tool and service that SpearMC does, where they build out roadmaps for customers. And a lot of times when I go through my roadmap, I can tell that there are many customers that have a hard time figuring out how the stuff that I talk about in our roadmap fits into their own roadmap. But it becomes more of a reality when you have a plan like this that considers both the stuff that we're delivering and also the things that you need to do internally with PeopleSoft at your organization. So very cool service that SpearMC provides. Okay, so speaking of roadmap, I thought I'd take a slightly different approach in doing the roadmap. I do plan on covering a lot of the new functionality that we plan on delivering, but I first wanted to share with you what I thought was kind of a best practice for all of our HCM customers out there when you're looking at building that roadmap, right? Whether you do it, with a partner or you do it on your own, it can be overwhelming when you look at the number of features that we deliver as a development organization and how often we do it, right? We're delivering it every couple of months, and we continue to do that during the pandemic, and we just haven't slowed down. And I think that can be overwhelming to some organizations that are just trying to keep up with what they have or what they need to do. So here's a little bit of a checklist that you can use as kind of a best practice. It doesn't mean that you need to do all of these things, but I suggest that you at least consider them, right? So the first 4 that I have check marks next to, I've kind of just gone ahead and made the assumption that the majority of you on this call have already included this as part of your roadmap. In other words, you're doing your best to stay current with the HCM images that we deliver. You do not have to always be on the latest and greatest, right? I don't expect everybody on this call to be on image 39 and just waiting to click download when image 40 becomes available. And that's just not feasible. But I do expect customers to have a plan in place to try to get current, let's say once every 12 months, 15 months, whatever the frequency is for your organization. But most of our customers have now come up with a plan to not only stay current or get current with an HCM image, but also get and stay current with their people tools. From what I can tell informally, most of our customers are usually between 1 to 2 releases behind the latest release of People Tools. Right now, People Tools 8.5.9 is the latest release. It's available to all platforms, cloud and on-premise customers. But we'll regularly run into customers that are on 8.5.8 or 8.5.7, and that's fine. We understand, that there's going to be a delay, but just have a plan to try to stay current. That's the best risk mitigator there is out there, and it's the best way to stay current with the technologies that we take advantage of on the application side by staying current with tools as best you can. And many of you have implemented some type of strategy to selectively take or adopt new features as they come out in between those times that you're getting current. And that's really important, particularly when we deliver a feature that you need to get right away. And then most of you have already deployed Fluid. So I think those first 4 are table stakes. Those things are things that you need to really do if you want to get the most out of PeopleSoft and have your PeopleSoft system stay current. Now, the rest of these are items that are suggestions that you may or may not be already doing. First is deploying Fluid Job Data. We've been talking about Fluid Job Data probably the better part of the last 18 to 24 months. It was a big project for us internally, and it's something that impacts all of our HCM customers because everybody goes in and uses the job data component, right? It's where all the magic happens. We already have customers, after delivering job data last year, we've got customers going live on job data. I think it's very important for customers to evaluate what Fluid Job Data can do and get to planning to get it on your roadmap to deploy it. We have a number of blogs. I've written a blog too on how to get started with Fluid Job Data. So you can always go to Oracle, the Oracle blogs.oracle.com/PeopleSoft and take a look at that, or you can just do a search on that for that blog. And it's a really handy checklist to get you prepared for job data. Another thing that I think is important for customers to do is to take a look at Kibana Analytics. I'll talk a little bit about it today, but it's really important to understand what you can get out of Kibana, how it can help you provide reporting and analytical capabilities to your users for PeopleSoft data. Then it's important to target specific roadmap items that I'll cover today that you want to deploy through selective adoption. Leveraging configuration frameworks to either replace or reduce your customizations or maybe avoid customizations in the future. Evaluate Picasso. It's our new name for our chatbots. It's something that you should at least take a look at and understand how it works and how it could potentially fit into your roadmap moving forward. And then lastly is to continue to learn about Oracle Cloud. It can seem sometimes that the cloud is we're always talking about the cloud, and that may be the case, but it's also important to learn along the way. So kind of put that in on your list to do. Speaking of job data, I forgot to mention, you look at the bottom right-hand corner, we do have a session on it on Wednesday, 11:45. That's the live session, 11:45 Eastern. Feel free to attend that. I didn't plan on doing a demo of that since that feature is available already, but please feel free to do that. And just as a note, and I forgot to mention at the top, Deep Dive is unique because this conference is one of the few, if not only, conference I know of, particularly a national or international conference, where we actually intentionally go deep into functionality that's already available to you in PeopleSoft. My session is a roadmap session, so I'm talking about things in the future, but the majority of the sessions starting tomorrow that you'll attend will be about features that are already available in the system or just about to be available in the system. And the idea is that you could walk away from that session, understand the nuances of the feature so that you could go into your organization and start deploying it if you wanted to. That's the idea. Okay. All right. I promised I was going to talk about Kibana. Let's talk about that now. If you haven't heard about Kibana, it's a new way within PeopleSoft that you can render cool visualizations to represent data in PeopleSoft. We have a modern palette of data visualizations, which is unlike any other type of visualizations that we've had in the past in PeopleSoft, and it's far and away better than the visualizations available to you through pivot grids, for example. There's multiple ways you can access Kibana, and what I'm showing you here on the screen is actually a dashboard, and the dashboard has multiple individual visualizations like a donut chart, a bar chart, a tag cloud, a geographic location map, a time series. These are all really cool modern visualizations that haven't been available in PeopleSoft in the past. And your users can access these dashboards all within PeopleSoft because all the security is handled within PeopleSoft. And the beauty is no additional licenses are required. And we are looking into how we can continue to deliver dashboards, and we've delivered some and we're delivering more, where it really helps not only the power users within your organization, like your administrators, but also leadership, because these types of visualizations lend themselves to helping with strategic decisions, right? So in so doing, for the power user that's looking at a lot of data, we are looking at enabling real-time indexing for all of the dashboards that we deliver over time. And that allows you to see the data being updated in real time. And for our strategic decision makers, we are providing what we call an alias support so that the technical jargon that's used for the field names and whatnot can be masked, so that you can view an alias which actually makes more sense to a layman user, right, who may not know the details of record names and fields. So that is kind of the vision for us for Kibana moving forward. And we have a number of features or dashboards that include a number of visualizations already delivered. Those are the ones that are on the left for HCM. And then the ones on the right are the ones that we're planning on doing. Many of them either sit on their own as a dashboard that a user can manipulate and work through and review. Others help support features that we've already delivered. So it becomes more of a way of providing reports based on a feature. So for example, you can see where you're leveraging Kibana. We plan to leverage Kibana to do some reporting and analytics on onboarding. So what the idea there is that anybody that's responsible for onboarding people in your organization can go to a Kibana dashboard and take a look at the status of all of the people that are being onboarding currently. You know, what percentage of steps have they completed in their onboarding process? How close are they to finishing? Have any of them dropped out? You know, those types of things, those questions that we all have in terms of status tracking and insights into a process at our organization, Kibana can help with, right? So there's a couple sessions that I have listed up in the upper right-hand corner. You can take note of those, where we will go deeper into different Kibana visualizations that are being planned for delivery, or have already been delivered, I should say, or very close to being delivered, I should say. And you can take a look at what those look like. So we've got a couple of those there. Okay, so if you wanted to know how to get started with Kibana, because it is essentially a platform within the People Tools, it's enabled with People Tools. What I would recommend is to first take a look, where you can attend those sessions that I listed in the previous slide, just to kind of get an understanding of what these visualizations look like and how they work for a particular area within PeopleSoft. But overall, if you understand kind of how Kibana fits within our architecture, the best thing to do is to review the Kibana Analytics section on PeopleSoftInfo.com. And what I would do, and these are just my personal recommendations here, I would pick one of the delivered Kibana dashboard, maybe more than one if you'd like, that we have delivered for you, and show it to your leadership, right? Show it to your power users, show it to your VPs of HR or CHROs or whoever would benefit most from the data that's shown, including recruiters and payroll directors and those types of folks, and see what they think. And then what I would do is I would pilot a couple of these dashboards to a group of users that really like to dig into the analytics. Maybe it's the same people that you demo to, or maybe it's a subgroup, and get their feedback. And if you get a thumbs up from them, then I would look at deploying it in your environment. You could also not only deploy the ones that we deliver, you could build your own, either ones that complement the ones that we've done, or maybe update the ones that we've delivered, or you can build a whole new one to automate maybe a manual report that you're doing on a daily basis. Either way, you need to get to tools 858, or if you like, you can get to 859, but minimum 858 to make all of it work in your environment. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about chatbots. So you've probably heard me talk about chatbots for the last probably 2 years now, as we've started to leverage the Oracle Digital Assistant technology, integrate it using tools within our applications so that a user can log into PeopleSoft and use a chat window, a conversational interface, as we call it, to interact with a way to get information out of the system, right, out of PeopleSoft, maybe even initiate a transaction. This is a different approach to accessing PeopleSoft and navigating PeopleSoft and getting information out of PeopleSoft. There's many of us, including myself, that love to still go the menu-driven format, only because I know where everything is. And in PeopleSoft, we've made it easier to use keyword searches and saved and favorites and all that type of stuff that, you know, I'm a whiz when it comes to going around the menu, right? And many of you are as well. But we also have a number of new generational users to PeopleSoft, new to PeopleSoft in general, casual users that only go into the system every once in a while, and users that are used to using more of a chat interface to get what they want in their regular lives, in the commercial lives. I'm quoting a Gartner report from 2019 that said by next year, 70% of office workers will interact with conversational platforms on a daily basis. It used to be one of those things that they would interact with a conversational platform for a specific action that they needed to take. But it looks like more and more it's becoming the primary way that they're going to interact with a system, even at work, right? 74% of consumers prefer a chatbot when looking for instant answers, and the key word being their instant answers, right? If I think I have a question that I think has a quick answer, should be able to to use a chatbot. I don't need to talk to somebody. I don't need to email somebody. I can chat somebody and get that information. So we feel that this type of data kind of validates our investment in this area, and ultimately customers will start to leverage it. Now, what's interesting, and you probably heard this term Picasso. I don't want you to get confused. Picasso still means chatbot, but what we've done is we've branded it Picasso, which is cleverly known as PeopleSoft Intelligent Chat Assistant from Oracle. We like the name, we like the branding. It's also used as kind of a art of the possible, because we want customers to know that they can brand it. Right? You can brand it yourself with what you'd like to call it. And it's an easier way to reference it. It's an easier way to deploy it, get people to use it. And what you may not have seen in the past, and how we've kind of evolved the Picasso, is not only branding it, but we've created a new way of accessing the skills and the actions that you can do within the system. So let me just show you real briefly a short demo to give you an idea of how it's actually changed. So I'll log in as the infamous R. Channing, the most overworked user in PeopleSoft history, right? And R. Channing, Rosanna is a working manager, working director, has multiple people reporting into her, both direct and indirects, as we all know. So what's interesting here, and again, some of you have seen me do the chatbot demo, but what you'll notice that's different from what I've done in the past. In the past, I would end up going to a particular tile that said absence requests or company directory chatbot, or it was a tile that would invoke a specific skill available as a chat, right? Now we don't need to do that, okay? So now what you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is a little icon, the Picasso icon, and when you click on that, it'll open up the chat window. I need to move my Zoom stuff away. It'll open up the Picasso chat window that the user can interact with to get things done, right? To take action if they want to. So it immediately knows who I am, because I've logged in already as Rosanna, and it presents to me a number of these. They're called assistants. They're basically skills. Each one of these skills represents a number of things that I can do in those areas, right? I can, for example, ask for time off. I can look at my benefits information. I can look up somebody employee directory. So I have a whole list of things. If I wanted just to scroll through this, I can. But we feel the primary way people are going to use this system is to type, right? And to do short sentences. So if maybe the first thing is I want to take time off, right? Again, this is a transaction that we've been showing for quite some time. It's been one of the first skills that we delivered in Chatbot, right? But here's where it's starting to evolve. So not only is it now, I didn't have to select this particular tile to do it. I have access to it here. It's walking me through the process just like it did before. But let's say I stop here and say, you know what? I need to check on see if Vicky's going to be going to be available to cover for me when I'm out. So I can look up Vicky. Okay, it's my coworker, so I can get her phone number and contact her. Okay, so let me try look. Well, let's say I wanted to look up whether our office is opening. Okay, so I can do office. I typed in office opening updates. And so what it does is that now the chatbot can access basically an FAQ and provide me a link that I can look up that information to see if my office is open, right? And then notice, this is the part I really wanted to show you, not really looking up Vicky's number, but I want to show you that we could stop. I stopped my transaction with absence. I looked up the office closures or the openings. And then now it's asking me, do I want to finish the absence that I started, right? So I'm able to jump in between different skills all within one window, one chat window. So if I wanted to bypass this and say, what is the status of my expense reports? Okay, so now this is jumping outside of HCM, status of expense. Okay, so it says it found 10 of my expense reports out there. And since it's found multiples, it allows me to scroll through them. And I could find the one that I'm looking for, which is the one that got denied, right? And if I want to, I click on show details, shows me the details of those, of that transaction. So just a quick example of what's available now with chatbots that wasn't available before, because we're continuing to invest in the solution and trying to make it easier to use and all-inclusive in one environment, okay? This explains to you the concept of what we call a digital assistant. So the digital assistant is able to access multiple skills. And if the skill applies to the digital assistant, then you can access it. And in that case, in the case that I just showed you, I was in the employee digital assistant for Picasso, and I was able to access the absence skill, and I accessed the expense skill. So we plan to have a couple different digital assistants because it depends on the access and what type of skills we want, or what type of actions or skills that they're going to end up doing for those individual digital assistants. So the employee digital assistant is the one that's going to be the biggest. That's the one that's available today. And there's a number of skills that are associated with it, as you can see there, and a couple that I have a star next to. Those are the ones that we're still working on. So there's enough skills associated with employee digital assistant that even if you just deploy the ones that we delivered for you, you'd be able to have a nice, well-rounded user experience for your employees. And if you wanted to add others, you can. I'm referencing a session that Dave, Bain, and Arun are doing on Wednesday, where they'll go into detail about this, show you even more of the demo that I showed you. I just showed you a small piece of it. They'll go through the entire demo and you'll be able to see how that all works together. To get started, I'd review the information on PeopleSoft Info. We have a chatbot Picasso section on PeopleSoftInfo.com. I would show Picasso to your leadership or those that you think would benefit from seeing it in action. It's a lot better to show than it is to talk about, obviously. Now, there's two things that are kind of different about this initiative, or unique about this initiative, that you have to consider. I suggest that you consider. First is you should collaborate with others in your organization who would benefit from chatbots. I don't know, quite honestly, if it's worth deploying just like one skill, let's say, for let's say your employee digital assistant. I don't know how beneficial it would be to put all the time and effort into deploying just one or two skills. Maybe at first it's okay, but you need to have a vision, a grander vision for being able to deploy many skills, right? Because it becomes an interface that people will come to use and expect to be able to do more and more every time they come into it. So I think the more you can collaborate with others in your organization, maybe the people in expenses, people on the financial side, supply chain side, people in learning, people on your HR, on your help desk side, anybody else that you think that could benefit from the chatbot experience, it'd be much easier to collaborate because you can then deploy it once and then determine which skills that you want to add to it. It does require 85707 tools or higher, and you see the HCM image prerequisites there as well. The second thing that's unique about this feature or functionality is that it does require you to license Oracle Digital Assistant. That is the technology that translates what I type into the chat window and figures out what I'm actually trying to do and maps it to the intent that it thinks I'm trying to do and maps that to the call in PeopleSoft. So a lot of that heavy lifting that's done there, all of it actually, is done by Oracle Digital Assistant. So it does require you to license that, which is another reason why you want to collaborate with other groups in your organization. It helps spread the cost of it around to be able to deploy it. So consider that. Most customers early on, as they look at chatbots, are working with a partner. make it happen. So I would recommend that as well, and at least at this stage of the game, maybe talk to a couple partners here at Reconnect to see how they can help you get started with Picasso. Okay, let's talk a little bit about cloud. I decided to do it kind of in the middle of our session before we get to all the PeopleSoft fun stuff, because I just wanted to make sure that you kind of understood where we think customers are with the cloud and what we think moving forward you should be considering. So I have there as a subtitle for this slide, you have options, you have time, and you have control. Because I feel like sometimes when I talk to customers, there's this, they feel like they have this pressure, whether it's, more external or internal, but they feel there's some pressure that they need to be looking at moving to the cloud for some reason. And there's nothing forcing you to move to the cloud. It's what the market is talking about, right? It's where we're investing resources as well into the cloud, and we envision customers moving to the cloud on a regular basis. But you don't have to move to the cloud. It's your decision if and when you want to move to the cloud. It's your decision how you would move to the cloud if you did, and it's your decision if you want to just stay with PeopleSoft and get the most out of PeopleSoft. You can do that, or you can do a combination of those things, which many customers do. But I wanted just to boil it down into 3 buckets to make it easy to understand if you find the cloud conversation complex. First is, we do have a number of customers who have decided to take advantage of the cloud by just taking their PeopleSoft environment and moving it to what we call the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, where Oracle runs your applications instead of your technical department. Okay, so we do have a number of customers that have done that. They looked at moving their testing databases there, their development databases, some have moved their production databases there. That is an option, right? Another thing that customers look at when it comes to cloud is transitioning to Oracle Cloud HCM applications, right? Whether it's talent applications, HR, payroll, the whole suite of Oracle Cloud HCM applications are available to them. Some have transitioned over for some of those applications, some have just stayed on PeopleSoft, some have gone holistically over to the cloud. Again, it's your option, what you would want to do if anything, right? And so with that, that's a possibility. And then the third option is that you can extend your PeopleSoft solution by leveraging cloud-based applications. And the Oracle Digital Assistant is a prime example of that. Oracle Digital Assistant is a cloud-based solution. We've built and delivered an integration between PeopleSoft and that application for you. But that's an example of how you can leverage an Oracle Cloud application like that and still get stuff done in PeopleSoft, right? So those are really the 3 main ways that customers are leveraging the cloud. If you want to learn more about the cloud HCM applications, there is a series that I'm a part of, a webinar series that I'm a part of. It's called the PeopleSoft and Cloud Webinar Series. I have a link there, where we're actually doing our 2nd season because we had such great attendance the 1st season. We're doing our 2nd season where we just go over what those new applications do, what they look like, what the features are, and people get to ask questions. And then they compare what's available in Oracle Cloud to what's available in PeopleSoft. It just keeps them aware. And notice that the roadmap item, the checklist item that I put down for this is not to move to cloud, it's to just learn about the cloud. Because it does move at a very fast pace. And if you don't keep up to date with kind of what's going on, it takes a while to catch up, right? So every, maybe once or twice a year, it's good to kind of keep abreast of what's going on the cloud side. We also have a number of resources available on PeopleSoftInfo.com that can help you get started if you want to learn more about it. Okay. Another aspect to cloud is the whole Oracle Data Science. So data science is an AI/ML tool that it's cloud-based. It's a service, but it helps with doing any type of predictive analytics or any type of insights that you want to get out of data that's in PeopleSoft, but also data that could be external from PeopleSoft, right? So this is kind of a new area of research and development for us. There's so much data in PeopleSoft that you all have, right? And it's rich with data, and that data can tell us something. If we can get it into the right application and marry it with other data that's complementary, we can probably get some good insights into what's going on with our HR group, with our employees, right, at our organization. And we are longer term looking at how we can maybe use PeopleSoft data along with Oracle Data Science to help us with some predictive analytics. So one example of an area that could be very beneficial, particularly in HR, is to be able to predict whether somebody, the likelihood that somebody's going to leave our organization. Right now, that data is usually the manager is the one that knows that, right? Well, if you want to know if someone's likely to leave, you would ask their manager. In this day and age, when we're remote working, it becomes harder and harder to know that. I can just know that firsthand, right? So is there a way that through formulas and through the data that we have that we can use as a predictor whether someone is at risk of leaving? That's something that's very exciting. It's very cutting edge, I think, and and maybe we can use data and the data science application to be able to answer that age-old question in HR, which is, what is the risk of my top performers leaving? Right. So I just mentioned this as more of a longer-term thing that we're looking at, in case you were wondering if we did have anything, if we were looking at anything in this area. Okay, Oracle Guided Learning is also another cloud solution that you could leverage. And this is a way to be able to, within PeopleSoft, you can embed it within PeopleSoft and show your employees, or you could show new users, casual users, new hires, how to use the system. And there's a couple sessions on this that I have listed there at the top of the screen for Wednesday afternoon, the live session. But this is not a bad solution if you do still need to provide this type of what I would call training or end user learning of the system. Whether it's because you have new power users coming on, you need to get them up to speed very quickly, or you've got maybe you've got some compliance requirements for training. And what's pretty cool about it, like if I show you real quick here, I go back to the same database I was in, there's a little Oracle Guided Learning icon here. If I click this, it allows me to select a particular action that I may need to do. So let's say I'm a casual user, I never come into PeopleSoft maybe once every year, and I'm being told that I need to add my emergency contact information. If I click on that icon, I see add emergency contact, and what it does is it just walks me through step by step how to navigate to get there. So it says expand the dropdown, right? Now it says select employee self-service. And then it says to select personal details, right? And then it says to select emergency contacts, and on, right? So it walks me through step by step what to do, which is a pretty cool tool to have if you've got users that need that. All right. One of the things on my to-do list for you all was also to leverage configurations. I just want to spend a second on this. In the past, we've always talked about how customers and partners can use configuration options or configuration frameworks available in the system today that would avoid doing traditional customizations, which can be costly to carry forward each and every time you get current or get up to date, right? But these configuration frameworks that I'm showing you here, this is not the whole list. This is just a healthy list to get started, right? You can also use these frameworks to improve the user experience in PeopleSoft. You can use it to automate manual functions. You can use it to replace maybe a customization you've done years ago or even recently. Whenever possible, I encourage you to look at the configuration frameworks. Now, customers don't always know what these are, and they don't always have experience with them. That's when an experienced partner comes into play, because they can always help you with that. We also have plenty of videos available that are accessible through PeopleSoftInfo.com or our YouTube channel that talks to what you would use these frameworks for. But I'll give you an example. So let's say you've made some considerable customizations to pages because you wanted to change the values that were shown, or the labels that were shown on the screen, to be more like what your organization calls things, right? You could easily use Page and Field Configurator to do that. That's a perfect example of leveraging that. You can even use it to show different displays for different roles or different people that are accessing the system, or those pages, I should say, right? Let's say you've customized a page because you needed to add fields that we didn't deliver out of the box to a process. You could use a drop zone to do that instead, right? If you're kicking off any type of action, maybe you've gone into a page and coded the page so that once somebody hits submit, then it kicks off your transaction. Maybe you can use event mapping instead to do that without having to go and touch that code of that page. You can use an activity guide composer to build a step-by-step process that maybe is manual at your organization today. Maybe you've customized a page because you need to allow for someone to upload an attachment. Well, we have an attachment framework now. So there's a number of different ways that we recommend customers look at all the different configuration tools that we have, and either replace customizations that you've done in the past, or if that's not feasible, keep these in mind for future changes that you make, right? So that you can leverage a framework instead of custom code. One of the frameworks I just want to drill in, because I think it's not well known, is the questionnaire framework. And before I do that, I just want to give a plug to Kelly and Joe, who are doing a PeopleSoft Page and Field Configurator for beginners, since I talked about that. It's a really powerful tool. If you don't know about it, I highly recommend you take a look at it. Very simple to use. We've built out new capabilities on it over the last few releases. So I do recommend that you at least take a look and see what's capable with that tool. But let's talk about questionnaire framework. Did you know that in PeopleSoft, you could use the questionnaire framework to survey your employees? You could put a survey step as part of an activity guide, and there are activity guides all over the place in PeopleSoft, right? Where you can have single choice, multiple choice, ranked answers, open-ended questions. You can ask your users to answer those questions, rank the answers that are available. You can share a pool of question and answers among different groups so that you don't end up having to recreate the same question over and over again. There's a number of great functionality available with this framework, and we plan on enhancing it. You see a couple of the roadmap items I have listed there, including making sure that you can create a survey independent of an activity guide, so you can just have it as a survey on its own. Being able to notify employees of a survey that's through online notification or through an email with a hyperlink that takes them directly to the questionnaire, and then leveraging something like Kibana, right, to be able to show the results of the analytics, that results of the answers that you get from the survey. So Tammy and Jagan are going to be doing a session on this. It's a quick review, but it'll at least show you how to set up a questionnaire and how to deploy it. It's pretty cool. They have a session going on Wednesday if you want to take a look at that. All right, so now what I'd like to do is go through some specific features that we're planning on delivering for PeopleSoft in our roadmap. We'll go product by product. I'm not covering everything that's on our roadmap. That would take us more than the 90 minutes I have, but I'm going through some of the high visibility ones and the ones that I think will matter the most. If you've got any questions about things that I did not cover, you can certainly reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that as part of our roadmap process, 2020 really challenged us to rethink our priorities. I mean, we build out our roadmap between 12 to 18 months ahead of time, but we had to do some reshuffling, just like I'm sure many of you had to, right? In order to meet the requirements of what was going on for our customers, but also what was going on in the real world, right? Where there's an hyper increased awareness of health and safety. And health and safety was a module that's been in PeopleSoft forever, but we had to find a way to make health and safety match today's requirements, especially what was going on with COVID. But we started to understand, the working conditions that people have and what they need to be successful, and how challenging it can be in these days, and what's the new norm, right? And everybody working from home, everybody doing distance learning. How can we enable them in this new norm, at least that happened last year and still continuing this year? And valuing agility over predictability. So we made a concerted effort to reprioritize our roadmap so that we could meet some of the demands and the changing conditions of what's been happening with the pandemic. So and luckily we use an agile development process so that we can do that. I know many of you use it as well, so that we can swap out features, not because the feature that we originally targeted wasn't important, it just wasn't as important as what was going on last year and this year. One of those examples of that is remote worker. So we did have a feature called Teleworker in PeopleSoft, which was delivered a while ago. What we did was we looked at how can we update that module to reflect the standards of today, and how many of our customers have employees that need to work remotely. So just so you know that this remote worker feature is expected to be available in image 40, which is coming out very, very soon, likely this month. And the idea here is to allow your employees to put in a request to work remotely, right? So it's a self-service process that's going to be available in 40, where it just walks them through a little activity guide, find out how many days a week are they going to be working remotely, and where will they be working remotely, and do they acknowledge that they're going to have a safe environment that's ergonomically friendly, and all the other things that need to go along with that if you want to capture that information, right? So what we fully expect is customers start to use this feature. We will get feedback on how we should potentially improve it. So we're waiting to get feedback from customers on how we can enhance it. But in the meantime, we know that there's a couple things we want to do in our roadmap. First is to, since we now will know who's a remote worker and when they're going to be working remotely, let's find a way to put that status on various PeopleSoft pages in the system, like on My Teams, for example, or employee or company directory, where it would be nice to know when you go in there and you look up somebody's information that you would know whether they're working remotely or not. We also are planning on providing some Kibana visualizations so that at least from an HR administrator perspective, you'd be able to see where all your employees are working remotely from, right? Do a slice and dice of all that data, the address, the location that they're working from, which days they're working from remotely and which ones they're not. All of that will become even more important as people do get back to work, but do more of a hybrid schedule. Those visualizations will become more and more important. If you want to know more about this feature, or at least what's going to be available in image 40, Tammy will do a walkthrough of remote worker. So that's her baby, and she'll walk through that. So I imagine many of you are interested in it. So highly recommend you attend her session where she'll show you how this all works. Another feature, again, that we had to reprioritize is health and employee wellness overall, right? We have to kind of look at employee wellness. And is there a self-service way that employees and managers can look up health and wellness related information on behalf of employees? And a big part of that, at least in today, as we talk about today, is being able to track employees' vaccinations, what vaccination they took, when did they take it, did they get the booster, those types of things, right? But also tracking test results, since there are some organizations that either require you to get a vaccine before you can come into the office or be deployed to a store, to a job, or to a client, or you have to show a negative test result within a certain amount of days. So that feature is available now, as you can see there on the slide. In fact, the development team originally had it targeted for image 40, so it'll be in image 40, but they also worked pretty hard to make it available as a PeopleSoft release patch. So it was made available the middle of last month for customers that wanted to get it sooner rather than later. So it's technically available now. If you go in and download it as a PRP, you can deploy it in your environment. Some of the things that we know we're going to do later on to support employee wellness is to have an administrative level Kibana Analytics for vaccination and test results, so be able to track that and get some insights into that. And then also to kind of complement the fluid employee health and safety self-service that we delivered a little while ago. We're going to provide a manager self-service way for a manager to enter health and safety incidents, whether they're COVID related or not, right? They could be just traditional health and safety incidents. You can enter them on behalf of an employee, because we have many customers that have that as their process. They don't allow employees to enter those incidents. They have to be entered by a manager. So Julie's going to go over health and safety with her health and safety session. That's Tuesday afternoon. So if you're interested in this feature and interested in how it works, how to set it up, it's pretty easy to set up. She'll go over that for you. Okay, still sticking with HR. So I had these grouped by product areas. So we're covering HR right now. Gender identity and employee self-identification. So we've been talking about this. I think I talked about this last year in terms of a feature that got put on our roadmap, and we are actively working on it now. This is a feature that allows customers to capture and track gender information, such as the employee birth gender, which could be different than that employee's current gender, which also could be different than the gender that employee identifies with. So you can capture all those different types of information in PeopleSoft. That's what this feature is intended to allow you to do as an organization. It also allows you to capture the preferred pronoun. So how does that person want to be addressed? That can also be part of this feature. Now, one thing to note is that we are making this configurable, right, by region and country. And we're doing that because we realize, well, first of all, it's an optional feature, so you don't have to deploy it. But we know that we have many customers that operate in different states or different countries where it may not, this information may not be recognized, right? So you will have the ability to, through configuration, figure out where you would like to allow this to happen and where you do not. And it's all part of the feature itself. Okay, so here's a list of the rest of the HR features that I didn't create individual slides for, else it would take too long to go over. But just as a quick summary, profile management, we've got a number of different features that you'll see coming, including the ability to configure the order of the fields that show up in profile management for employees that are entering information. Right now, you can't. There's an automatic way that it orders the fields that doesn't quite make sense. So we know that customers have asked to be able to order fields the way they would like to order it, which could be in any way. So we're working on that feature, and it's one of the highly requested features when it comes to profile management and allowing employees to enter that data. For employee self-service, acknowledgement for profiles. So having the acknowledgement so that an employee can acknowledge in the system that they know that there's a certain non-person profile item that goes along with their job, with their position, right? So just so that they know that there is that certification, or there is that that part of their profile that they need to keep up to date. And then also, so that's profile management. With onboarding / offboarding, we have a couple items available. We're working on a simplified and fluid version of a checklist, right? Making it easier to use and putting it in fluid that will help both onboarding and offboarding. We're also looking at supporting some pre-boarding activities. Many customers have said that they have a number of things that they want their employees to do before they're in fact technically employees, whether it's looking at a training, or downloading documents, or providing a document back to the organization. Anything that they can do ahead of time to speed up the onboarding process, they would like them to do before they're onboarded. So we're working on that as well for the roadmap. And then, as I mentioned earlier, leveraging Kibana to show status and tracking of steps completions in the onboarding process. Other things you'll notice there is we're planning on fluidizing the I-9 form. And as of today, since many people will get onboarded with their I-9 form and not see somebody in person, we need to give away so that you can have those new employees upload supporting documentation, to prove the proof of citizenship or the proof of ID, because that's still allowed by DHS. So we need to support that, as well as fluidizing the I-9 form itself so they can fill it out. Person data modernization, think of that as kind of the cousin to job data modernization. This is something we're actively working on to fluidize that component, just like we fluidize job data. I get the question of, well, should we wait till person data modernization comes out and then deploy both person data and job data? The answer is no, you don't. You can do job data now and then do person data when it comes out. I think that's what I recommend, because you don't want to spend this time waiting for person data to come out. Plus, they can be implemented separately, and if you have fluid job data, you can always go into classic person data to do what you need to do, even though you may have entered data in fluid job data. You'll know is that for PeopleSoft Picasso, we're delivering a new employee personal information skill, and we have some configuration options for company directory and personal information. So that specifically is for company directory, we're providing a few more fields that customers want to be able to configure to show in company directory, like business title and a person's time zone, or maybe even the current time where they are today. That's actually very useful, I find, when working with people in multiple time zones. So a number of fields that customers have asked us to be able to configure to show on company directory. And then customers have asked to be able to configure which types of phones, email, and addresses that the employee can see in self-service and even make changes to. So I think right now you can do one at a time. So this feature will allow you to pick which one you want to show and allow them to update through self-service. I forgot to mention when we were talking about profile management that Jeremy is doing a session Thursday talking about profile management. So you can, I'd certainly encourage you to attend that session if you're using profile management, or if you're not, but you're interested in using it, you should attend that session as well. Okay, so I had to take a sip. 90 minutes is a long time to talk, so I apologize. As we move on, so that rounded out HR. So now let's move on to time and labor and absence. So one of the big features that you can expect to see, and one of the cool features, I think, it's really a cool example of how we can leverage Fluid, and that is providing a scheduling calendar. As a manager or shift supervisor, however you want to view it, having one place where I can go to see all of my directs and indirects and seeing their schedule, whether they have time off, they're out sick, they're on vacation, they're in training. It gives me a complete view of my entire group to see who's available and who's not on a given week, right? In this case, it looks like it's a little bit more than a week in this example, or it's a week in this example. And I can also take action from here if I need to, right? That's actually the intent, to have like a one-stop shop there. So that's a really cool feature. Love the way we're expanding it and using Fluid to make all this happen. It can be very challenging developing in Fluid when you've got multiple devices to consider and you have a lot of data to show, right? And it seems like in time and labor and absence, we always have a lot of data to show, but that's one feature that we're working on for the roadmap. Other features that we're also looking at for time, labor, and absence, we're looking at enhancing forecasting for absence management. So right now, when a user goes in to put in a request for time off, if they want to, they can manually click a button to forecast out to see if they actually have enough time that they're trying to take off, if they'll have enough time by the time that date comes about, right? So we're looking at ways that we can maybe do that automatically, make it a configurable option so that you can actually allow it or not allow it, but it could be done automatically, because that's something that we should just know right ahead of time. Why, if somebody does not forecast and they put in the request, it's just going to lead to more work in the long run, right? So why not do that then? And then we've gotten some requests to clean up the messages that we get back, the user gets back, to give a little more insight into how that forecasting was calculated and why it's coming back saying that you won't have enough time or what have you, right? So we're looking at that. The other thing that we're looking at doing is the Fluid self-service absence pages that you use to take time off, make time off requests. Those were one of the first Fluid self-service application pages we delivered way back in, I want to say it's been like 7 or 8 years, maybe even longer. Well, since then, our Fluid pages have evolved, right? So we've got to find a way to get that updated. And so we're putting that as part of our roadmap to be able to update that. And also what will really round out our suite of Picasso skills that I talked about earlier is to be able to do time inquiries using a chatbot, be able to see what's the status of my time entry and have I entered time already for today. Those types of things we can get done through a chatbot interface. We'll provide that as a skill. Lisa Chow has a couple of sessions here at Reconnect. She has a tuning session that she's doing Tuesday, 12:15, and then she has her HCM Lounge session where you can talk to her there at 4:15 on Tuesday. Okay, for payroll for North America. So one feature that we have started looking into is the notion of a pay me now feature. That's kind of the name we've got in quotes now, that maybe it'll stick. But it seems to be a good name for this feature. But let me just explain what we're doing here in case you haven't heard about this. So there's definitely a trend these days of workers, particularly those that are accustomed to working in the gig economy, right? So think of, like, for example, an Uber driver who once you at the end of the day, that Uber driver is going to get paid for all of his or her rides or fares at the end of the day. Like, that Uber driver doesn't have to wait until the next pay cycle, which could be a week from then, 2 weeks from then, or a month from then. They will get their money right at the end of the day or end of the shift, or however you want to describe it. So there's a trend, particularly amongst the younger generation, to expect to be paid the moment their work is done or their job is complete, their task is complete. I told the story of my son who started his first job for the summer. He asked me after the first day for the login for his little checking account that we had established because he started working and he needed a direct deposit account. And I asked him, why did he need it? Because he wanted to see how much he made that day. And that was his very first day of work at summer. And he worked maybe like 4 hours, and 2 of those hours was orientation. But it just kind of gives you, a little glimpse into the mindset of expecting that pay right away. And I had to explain to him the concept of a pay cycle. Anyway, that's kind of a trend. And but there's also it's not just a matter of expectation. There's also the fact that there are people that live paycheck to paycheck, and that financial stress of waiting 2 weeks to get paid or a month to get paid, they'd be better off if they could get it sooner rather than later. So there's definitely a huge, serious consideration here for being able to pay people not just on pay cycles, but as they need it or as they complete their work. So this is something that we're working on. Obviously, this is a big feature, but we feel like even if your organization does not support that type of option now, we feel like later on, many organizations will. So we want to have this available when you do need it. We also feel that you may need this, particularly in the private sector, to be competitive as you recruit new employees, to be able to provide this option. So it could be bigger than just meeting expectations. So that's a feature that we're just starting to work on. A couple other things to keep in mind for payroll for North America: on-demand calculations on cycle pay sheets. So being able to use the on-cycle pay sheet to do these calculations for employees. If you just want to run it just to see if their calculation is correct, or maybe you've made any additional earnings or deductions and you want to check, instead of waiting till the payroll cycle ends, you can run it through what we're calling on-demand calc or a quick calc using the pay sheet. That's something that the team is working on. Also, being able to provide enhanced options for direct deposit. I think this is one of the highest requested ideas on our idea space, to be able to, particularly when someone has a net pay account, be able to set up, well, what do you want to do for that balance? Where do you want the balance to go? So our team is planning on working on that for our roadmap. Also, with the fact that people are remote working now, how can we facilitate their remote worker setup and get them paid accordingly and enrolled in the right tax distribution, enrolled in the right tax location? If they're working in one area and working from one area, but their work location is in another, how can we get that done to handle tax distribution for their paycheck? So that's something that's also on our roadmap. And the final thing listed there is Fluid Paycheck Modeler. So many of you should know that we have a classic version of Paycheck Modeler, or a Classic Plus version of Paycheck Modeler in the system. This allows employees to go in, if enabled, right? Because employees can go in and walk through step by step a model of what their paycheck would look like if they made certain changes, like if they increased or decreased their 401k, or if they had less deductions somehow, whatever the change that you want to make, or maybe you want to reduce or increase your medical benefits because you expect your spouse to either get a new job or quit their job. All these types of what-if scenarios are supported with Paycheck Modeler. It's available in the system today, has been for quite some time. But what we're looking at doing on our roadmap is to make this all fluid so that your employees can go on their mobile device and be able to use the modeler, which would be pretty cool. Okay, and for benefits, we are looking on our roadmap to provide the benefit plan comparison. So those of you who've seen what we've done in profiles, be able to compare profiles side by side. We plan on doing something very similar to that with benefit plans, especially to support the open enrollment process. One of the values of being able to, well, I think it's beneficial to be able to see complex plans side by side, especially if you don't know which benefit plan you want to pick. And your organization provides multiple plans. It's good to see them side by side, see what the deductibles are, see what the coverage is, the exclusions, et cetera. It's great to see it side by side. It's a little bit of a challenge to show that much data side by side, but that's something that we're looking at doing as part of our roadmap to enhance the user experience and the decision-making for people enrolling in benefits. Customers have asked us to allow them to configure the benefits confirmation statement. So once you're done enrolling in benefits, you'll get a confirmation statement. That statement is pretty much based on everything that you signed up for. Customers have said they want a way to be able to just to show in that statement the benefits that make the most sense. So we're looking at that. And then also as part of self-service to provide a health savings account worksheet calculator so online, so that as part of the process, I can go in as an enrollee and calculate how much I want to set aside per paycheck or per pay period for HSA. Okay, so for performance management, so for those of you who have performance management today, I think you'll be pretty excited about what we have planned in the future. Many of you are part of our performance management or e-performance focus group, so this shouldn't come as a surprise to you because you've actually been very instrumental in helping us get this designed and get our use cases straightened out. If you're not running performance management today and need a performance solution, now's the time to start looking at PeopleSoft, because we're working on a whole new fluid design that improves the usability of performance management, for both users, right? For both the manager and the employee. It's going to be optimized for the mobile user. We're also considering, when I say it says casual user there, when I say that, I mean someone who doesn't go into the system that often, or in the case of performance management, does it once a year. And usually you do performance management once a year, and we all forget how we used the system last year when we have to use it again the following year. It's just human nature. So we're keeping that in mind as we design this new modern e-performance system. And that includes modernizing and fluidizing the performance document itself, which has multiple components to it, as you know, if you're using e-performance, but also the business objectives, which many customers use either separate or to support performance management. And just being able to do it on your phone is going to be something, particularly for those who don't write a whole lot in their performance reviews anyway. I think it's going to be it's really going to hit out the park for those users. But there's more than just redesigning it and fluidizing it. We've heard from customers that they want us to be able to provide ratings and progress during checkpoints and having multiple checkpoints throughout the year. So we will keep the performance document open effectively all year, so you can go in and make those updates. Make it easier to align the corporate goals with business objectives and have them cascade down. Use performance notes to do quick updates in the system instead of waiting at the end of the year to write all that stuff in. Being able to see the ratings very, very easily instead of going into the performance document and hunting for those ratings. Providing feedback throughout the year. So we call it kudos and accomplishments. So anybody who's a manager, you know that a lot of times you'll get feedback from either customers or partners or coworkers who said, hey, so-and-so did a great job on this project. Well, I don't know about you, but I'll take that email and I'll save it in a folder, and then I'll come back to it later during the performance review. It'd be cool to be able to just put it in the performance document itself right away and just have it there, have the context and everything there, so then I can access it when I need to do the official review. And we've also been asked to exclude goal ratings in the performance rating calculation itself, because in some cases you have goals that either you didn't meet because they were outside of your control, or you don't want them part of the evaluation process for performance, but you want to track them anyway. So these are all things that are part of the roadmap, and we're actively working on today. Texting capabilities. So our recruiting team has really been on the forefront of pushing to get texting, because I think that's where texting has the most value. I think it has value everywhere, but the most value is around the interaction between a hiring manager or a recruiter and an applicant, right? I mean, that's how applicants these days expect to be kept up to date with the status of their application, scheduling interviews, and all those types of things, right? So in I think it was image 37 for recruiting, we delivered the ability to text, notify through text an external candidate, and we leverage a technology called Twilio, which basically ensures that the text gets to the right person, right? What we want to do moving forward is to allow text notifications for internal candidates as well, increase the number of notifications that we can support by text, and also not just handle what these are basically outbound texts, right, from the organization to the applicant. We also want a way for the applicant to be able to text back to the organization to complete that hiring, that communication loop between the applicant and the recruiter or hiring manager. So that's on our roadmap. Being able to track those communications in case we need to go back to the text to see what was said. And then also for global payroll, we've asked to, part of our roadmap, to get text notification anytime bank account or net distribution changes are made, which is kind of another safeguard for if anything may have been done accidentally or maliciously. So those are all as part of our roadmap items. And for those of you using HR Help Desk, you will know pretty soon. So actually later this month, pretty soon, our HR Help Desk team will be delivering image 20, I think it is, and that's going to be our first HR Help Desk image on Tools 859. So all the Tools 859 functionality and technology will be in that release. We'll have search-based navigation in there, rich text editor, in self-service, and for the triage dashboards. And you'll also see, as part of the release of that release, you will see these dashboards, Kibana dashboards. So we have a dashboard for the agent backlog, for the manager backlog, and for performance insights. So this is a really great dashboard to use for triaging cases. As cases come in, if you've got a backlog, you need to redistribute those cases, especially the high priority ones or the ones in danger of exceeding SLAs. You want to get them in the right person's hands. So this is a great tool for both agents to use for their own backlog of cases, but also for managers to do overall for all of their direct reports. And then the team shortly after that will start working on approvals for solution authoring. So right now you can write a solution and post it in HR Help Desk for employees to search and find solutions through self-service, but there's no approval process in place. So anybody can type something and post it. We'd rather have a more formal process where someone has to review what's being proposed to post and then either determine it can be posted or maybe suggest changes before it gets posted. All right. So just a couple things to leave you with as far as how you can connect and get more information. I know I covered a lot today. I felt like I've been talking all day, but there's a lot. I mean, I didn't even cover everything. I just tried to prioritize what I thought would matter most to you. So just a couple things that you probably know about, but if you don't, it's important that you do know about. We've got a number of focus groups that myself and my team hosts on a regular basis. Sometimes we do them ad hoc, sometimes we do them on a regular cadence. If you're not a part of those, highly recommend you take a look at the list And the list is accessible through PeopleSoftInfo.com, as you can see there on the right. You can take a look at the list and just pick a couple that you want, that you're interested in, and join us. Join us and help us know about what your use cases are, what your feedback and your perspective is, and then also let's hear about what your thoughts are on the proposed design. We also have our customer advisory board if you're interested in joining that. And then the idea space, which is really important because that's also a place where we mine when we look at roadmap, we mine our idea space to find the ideas that customers have suggested, right? We still get ideas from talking to customers on an individual basis. We'll get ideas from this conference. I'm very sure of that. But a good way to make sure that your idea is safe and sound and will be evaluated and reviewed by everybody is getting it on the idea space and seeing what other people think about it, and maybe others will agree and add to it, and that makes it even more important for us to try to respond to it somehow. Okay. And these are some of the traditional ways to get more information. I always cover this in our sessions because there's always somebody that hasn't heard of it. But just out of all of these, I would just want to highlight two things. One is the blogs. I mentioned it at the top of our session today. The blogs are something that we're heavily invested in. We feel like it's a great way to keep customers up to date with things that are happening today, but also to help you understand how you can get the most out of features that are already in the system. So anytime we talk to customers and we think that there's a burning idea or an issue, and we know that there's a way to solve it in PeopleSoft, well, if one of you is experiencing it, then probably many of you are. So we'll use the blogs as a quick way that we can get the message out there. And it's just becoming a really good platform for us to be able to get that information out to you. So highly recommend you subscribe or at least monitor those blogs to see what kind of information is coming out there. And always reach out to me if you like, if there's certain topics that you'd like us to cover. There's many of us internally here at Oracle and PeopleSoft that write blogs. So there's plenty of us that if you've got a subject you want us to consider, let us know. The other thing is that the roadmap, the complete roadmap, is available on PeopleSoftInfo.com. We call our roadmap plan, features, and enhancements, but it's synonymous for roadmap. It's only accessible to customers. You have to have a MOS account to see it. We don't provide our roadmap externally, but that's where all the things that we plan on getting to over the next 18 months are listed. So if I didn't cover something and it's not on that PFE page or roadmap page, definitely reach out and let us know if it's something that you want us to consider, either through the idea space, or you can contact us directly and we'll talk it over. But those are two great resources. And I've come to hear from particularly a lot of our customers that they love the YouTube channel because our videos are like 3 to 5 to 7 minutes in length. And it's a great way to share what we know about a feature to you all, but then for you all to share it within your organization, right? Because that seems to be the primary way people are consuming information now, through videos and not through red papers and white papers. So I do highly recommend that you take a look at that. And just a quick plug, myself as well as my team will be available for the PeopleSoft HCM panel, which is going to be Thursday at 3:30 Eastern. It's intentionally done to be at the end of the conference, because what we want you to do is to learn as much as you can over the next few days, go to as many sessions as you can, ask as many questions as you can. But then if there's anything that didn't quite jive, or maybe you thought somebody said one thing, another one said something else, come to the panel discussion and ask us. Say, hey, I thought I heard this in this one session, but then I heard something else in another, and we will help you understand, where things are at. But also, if we don't cover something that you wanted us to cover, you can bring your question to the panel, and between our group there, we'll find a way to answer it. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it for you. But that's the purpose of the panel, and it's always a fun time. It was a fun time in person because everybody's a little giddy during that session. And we usually have a lot of fun in person. Hopefully we can find a way to have fun too virtually, since we're not all together there. Okay, so I will pause there because that is the end of what I was planning on presenting. And then I'm now going to figure out how I can check the chat for questions. If anybody has a question, if you can use the chat tool, and I will go out there to see what questions are there. Okay, so so we have about 3 minutes. So I'm just going to read off as many questions as I can in 3 minutes, and then the rest of them I will try to reply in the text. But also note here down at the bottom of the screen, you see my email address too. So you can email me, you can come to the panel on Thursday, or you can just directly message me in the virtual conference platform, and I'd be happy to follow up and talk to you and answer your questions. Looks like a lot of questions got answered from my brilliant and talented team, as well as my peers in development and everywhere else. Everyone's had a lot of questions answered. So if you see the chat, you'll be able to see those answers. So I think everything has been answered. Yeah, things answered. So I guess I'll use this opportunity just to say, have a great conference. Thanks to everybody for making this happen. And again, if you have a question that we didn't get to, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer them. Have a great conference, everybody.